Okay, let's get right into hour number 3 on this Friday night, Thanksgiving 4-day weekend. The end of November 2009 already. 2010 will be here before you know it, guaranteed. Going over to Tokyo now to talk to Mr. Ben Fulford. Benjamin is here once a month with us. He is a member of a very interesting family out of Canada. He makes his home now in Tokyo. He was the Asia Pacific Bureau Chief for Forbes magazine for 8 years. Always has fascinating things to share with us. Let's find out if he's there.
Yeah, here I am.
Welcome back.
Yeah, nice to be back. A lot of good things happening finally.
Well, your phone sounds better. That's one good thing.
Yeah, a lot of people have been coming out this way to visit me, and there's been a lot of interesting discussions.
Did David Rockefeller come back?
Well, no, the CIA sent someone, the KGB sent someone, Mossad sent someone, the Yakuza sent someone.
Gee.
Things are coming to a head very quickly.
With
the gold price and the dollar plunging and the thing in Dubai, it's starting to leak out into the, corporate press. They just can't keep that story dead forever.
What's interesting about the Dubai story is that you and I knew it was happening. But all of a sudden the press discovers it, and it becomes big news, and the markets dive and all the rest of it. Tell us more about Dubai and why that's such a big deal. It's only 90 billion, allegedly, but we think it's much more than that.
Well, you got to remember that Dubai doesn't have oil, okay? And so you
got a lot of big buildings, though.
They have all this money to build this huge palm tree and all these hotels and stuff, right?
Right.
Well, apparently it was, Bush money, Carlyle money, dirty CIA money being laundered through there, and that's been cut off. The Arab kingdoms have also been negotiating with us, and basically they've agreed. It was still not final, but they've agreed not to block the free energy technology anymore, on the condition that at first it'd be limited to taking the salt out of seawater, so you can create enough fresh water to turn the deserts green.
Yep.
And then phase it in over, other areas in such a way that it doesn't cause social disruption. So that's why they pulled the plug on Dubai. They stopped, bailing them out anymore. At least that's my latest understanding.
Mm-hmm.
The Japanese are also going ahead now and building factories for this new technology.
Mm-hmm.
And the Pentagon guy who came over to see me, he talked about there's at least 6,000 patents in the U.S. that have been suppressed for so-called security reasons or whatever. In other words, the men in black and the elite wanted to keep it just for themselves and not have the average Joe use it. So they're going to start developing that into consumer products and things for Americans. So it'll be a great boom. We're just, in the final stages of draining the swamp, the Federal Reserve swamp, and all the swamp creatures will be flushed out soon. You can see it happening already. Tony Blair was not made an EU president, and you have Obama going everywhere and bowing because he's begging for money and he's not getting any. There are many ways to confirm that this whole nasty cabal is unraveling as we speak.
How much,
it's great
Ben?
That all that CO2 lie got exposed.
Well, I sure did. And we put up a huge story about that. When that broke, whoever those hackers were that got those emails deserve the Nobel Prize.
Yeah, well, I think the Nobel Prize deserves to be put in the garbage and replaced with something else,
Well, I think it should be taken...
Its credibility with...
Taken away from Gore and given to those hackers. Yes, of course, lost its credibility. It's been exposed for the political sham and scam it is. You give one to Gore, you give one to Obama.
They give it to Obama like a year in advance.
Yeah,
at least. They're thinking that, here you have Obama naming himself as president of the UN Security Council. They thought they were going to have a world government, the fascist world government, with Obama as a puppet president, as a result of the crash they engineered in the U.S. market, the so-called housing crisis, but it blew up in their faces. So it's great. It's just wonderful to watch this happen. And believe me, those guys are scared now, and they should be.
Well, I'll tell you,
very, very bad stuff.
There's a lot going on, and I don't know if you're right or you're wrong. All I can do is watch and see and observe like everybody else. I hope you're right. If this doesn't come down and we don't have a massive change very soon, there won't be much left to save.
Yeah, well, it is true that, look, when you're talking, we're talking like a sort of a war-like situation. It's a financial war. So you have one side, they say, well, we're going to be in Berlin by Christmas, and then the other side planning their Battle of the Bulge, right? So it's not over till it's over. But certainly, from my perspective, it's hard to see how they're going to squeeze their way out of this one.
Right. Just read a story where the conservative estimates have it that Stalin, during his tenure, liquidated close to 45 million human beings. 45 million during Stalin's rule
my own estimate is the United States has killed about 40 million people since the end of World War II.
Nothing would surprise me. We know that 6 million thereabouts have died in Iraq and Afghanistan since Bush 41 invaded there in 1990, whenever it was.
Yeah, if you add up the deaths from the Korean War, the Vietnam War, the Iraq massacre, and all that other stuff, you'll find that. And then, of course, they manufactured HIV and killed about 40 million people there.
25.
These are very, very evil people, and they're located in the armaments industry, in the pharmaceutical industry, at the top of governments, and the top of the big, money-centered banks.
Right.
We know who they are, and they know that they are in very, very deep trouble. I keep telling them that, the longer they fight and drag their heels, the worse it's going to be for them. There'll be no hope for a Truth and Reconciliation Committee. It'll be death penalty for all of them if they keep this up. And they really deserve the death by 1,000 cuts, the old Chinese penalty.
Well, how many people have they, through their actions, deliberate and otherwise, killed? Again, you can't estimate. It's impossible to project. You go all the way back to the last century, the beginning of that, and all the wars basically were financed by the same people, both sides, all the death, all the destruction. It's still going on today. Those people can be most easily seen in Iraq, the death toll there, and the just absolute leveling of that country. The war in Afghanistan, which has gone on for 8 years now. Yeah. And
what they like to do is they like to have a long, unwinnable war so they can keep selling shoddy military equipment at inflated prices.
Isn't it a disgrace that the Republic has gone for 8 years?
Well, you got to remember, they fell for a 100-year-long trap. These guys work very, very slowly.
Sure.
They took over the Fed, then they bought the textbooks, and the professorships, and taking over the newspapers, and then bribing the politicians, And little by little, they take a decent, God-fearing country, and they turn it into an evil Nazi killing machine, and their own people don't even know it. But it took them 100 years, and then they thought, okay, now we've got everything in place, we can now just come out in public and say, yes, we worship Lucifer, but it didn't work. It blew up in their faces. They still don't understand.
Well, listen, you're right, and you may be not as right as we'd like to see. Here, the program is still moving forward. It's moving forward right in our faces, and then this is the story I discussed in the first hour tonight with D.V. Kidd. WorldNet Daily has the story, and it's very interesting, to put it mildly. Shades of the University of Delaware's plan last year. Get this one. A program proposed at the University of Minnesota would result in required examinations of teacher candidates. Now, these are students who want to become teachers. At the University of Minnesota would result in required examinations of teacher candidates. Now, these are students who want to become teachers.
Right.
Teaching candidates. They're going to examine them in terms of white privilege as well as remedial re-education for those who hold the wrong views. This is mass mind control and incredible programming. I mean, this is amazing.
Favor re-education and reprogramming for Satan worshippers who think that they're superior. Now, these guys were planning to create a super race of ruling humans.
Well, they're still there. They're God's chosen, aren't they? Isn't that a super race?
Well, the thing is, it's like, this is where you have to understand that we're dealing with Nazis, okay? And there are a lot of Jewish Nazis and Zion-Nazis, but it's not a Jewish thing so much as a Nazi thing. This is the point I want to make very clear.
Don't even say Jewish, say Zionists, because
Zionists,
Jewish...
yeah, because the Jews have nothing to do with this.
Well, they have something to do with it, but it's Zionism. That's the codification of it.
Is a decent person.
But we know that. We don't have to keep apologizing for that. We know that.
I know. It's just that they use that as camouflage. They use these fool people.
Yeah, it's been
like that.
done. So that's one of Theodore Herzl's scams, was to get in and take over organized Jewry and make it a front for this whole thing, which is what they've done. And unfortunately, many Jews have bought into it, but that's the bottom line.
And after the commercial, I'm going to tell you, I've got an update on that $134 billion in bonds that were seized in Italy.
Oh, that's a good story. All right,
they're
very
here
good.
in Japan now, and they're trying to cash them, but they're not
really?
going to get it.
That one of the people that visited you, was it?
Well, the people who have it, the two Japanese who were arrested were a guy called Yamaguchi.
All right, hang on.
A guy called Watanabe.
Got it. Hold on. Be right back. With Ben Fulford, live from Tokyo. Okay, and we are back. Talking to Ben Fulford. All right, Ben, so this story, it's one of those stories that comes and goes too quickly. Go ahead.
Two Japanese men carrying diplomatic passports were arrested in Italy, carrying $134.5 billion worth of government bonds. Now, the official cover story that went out was that they were forgeries, but of course the two men were released. So it's just, and then they just left it at that. But in fact, the Pope, Ratzinger, personally intervened to have them released. And then the bonds were sent back to the Federal Reserve Board, and they were using that, they were going to use that in an attempt of economic warfare against Iran. And it was stopped. And so some Turkish guy and a Macedonian with a Swiss passport showed up in Japan with those bonds, and they're trying to get, former Governor Bank of Japan and prime ministers and stuff to help cash them to keep the feds going. Well, that's not going to happen. It's been stopped, and those people have been arrested, and so their whole sort of network of flunkies here in Japan is being flushed out now. But it's still an ongoing thing. We still have the Queen of England messing around. We still have the Feds still trying to do their thing. I mean, there's still, and then we got Ratzinger, who's blocking good work within the Vatican. Vatican wants to release the new technology, and it's only the Pope, I believe, and maybe the Black Pope, the head of the Jesuit, Hovenbach. I know he's officially not the Superior General anymore, but he really is. But if these people don't block it, it'll happen soon. There's important meetings now happening in Switzerland, in Japan, and probably in the U.S.
Bill, this issue of bills, these are not like currency. These are still. I'm going to go back to this effort to cash these. They're bonds or bills? What are they? They're bonds. What were they?
Bonds and they're bills, and they're backed by gold.
Okay.
And they have, deliberate misspelling and stuff on them, so they can always say, oh, look, this is an obvious forgery, right?
All right. But do you think they're real?
Well, they're real, but they're no longer valid.
Okay.
In other words, the Chinese say, no, we don't consider those to be valid anymore. They weren't.
Is this a story, Ben? Is this story in the media there? Has anyone been talking about this, or did you just pick it up through your sources?
I picked it up through my sources. I mean, the media here only mentioned it when they were arrested in Italy in June, and then it's just been silent. But, I have sources with the Japanese security police and the Yakuza and all sorts of folk who keep me... I mean, I have so much information they're giving me. It's almost like, when you get all this secret information coming to you, you just stop reading the newspaper because it's all just a fabric of lies. It's not worth your time to read that stuff anymore.
Well, I can't sum it up any better than that.
It's almost like a Harry Potter world where you have these witches and these people and then the muggles,
Mm-hmm.
And the muggles are the poor fools who still get their information from the corporate propaganda media, and it's like we're living on two different planets almost.
Well, at least two.
Yeah. And they throw all sorts of disinformation my way. I mean, I know that probably the universe is full of life and there are extraterrestrials, but I'm not going to believe it until I see a mile-long UFO with my own eyes, and I'm not going to let that disinformation...
Well, then somebody might tell you it's just a holographic image, Ben. It's not real.
Well, if I see it and it looks real to me, then I'll
All right.
And if I see aliens walking around the shopping centers, then I'll know. But until then...
Right.
I'm still assuming it's up to us humans to fix this planet.
Yeah,
well... And you've got to remember, despite all the confusion, all the subterfuge, all the disinformation, it's really, really a simple thing that's going on. A very nasty criminal group has taken control of most of the world's savings, and they've been spending on a giant military killing machine for decades.
Nicely said.
The whole planet...
Decades? How about centuries?
Centuries, yeah. And now the people of the planet have risen up, led by the Chinese and the Asians, but also by the white hats in the Pentagon and in Europe and people like yourself. And we're saying, look, that's no way to spend people's money. And instead, they're going to spend it on the environment, on ending poverty, on developing the forbidden technology. And the deal with the Pentagon is we'll hire them to be like the samurais, the protectors of the planet. And we'll make sure that, because they've told me repeatedly they don't want to end up like the Soviet Union where you have a general suddenly finds himself driving a taxi in London, And so they will be paid generously to help get rid of the Fed. And then there'll be a sort of swords to plowshares transformation of that organization.
Boy, you're a therapy to my ears. Every time you're on, you bring this positive spin forward, and everyone hopes you're right.
You see, here in Japan, the changes are taking. The new government, if you just read what's in the newspapers here now, and it's not being reported in the Western press much, you can see that there has been a total regime change from what was put in place after World War II. So it's already happened here. That's why I'm much more optimistic, because the U.S. is still under control of these satanic scumbags. But not for long, not for long. Their day of reckoning is coming. Bit by bit, piece by piece, a prosecution here, a court case there, an arrest there, a suicide there, and it's coming apart. They're slowly, slowly being ground down to dust. You got Paul Wolfowitz, he's like one of the number one bad guys now. I'm hearing rumors, I can't confirm, that George Bush Sr. and Barbara Bush were killed at Fort Hood. We still don't know if that's true or not, but...
What do you see? What?
Well, according to MI6, what happened at Fort Hood, there was a bunch of big limousines there at the time. And we know that much. And we know that George Bush Jr. and his wife immediately flew there to so-called control the victims. Well, they didn't immediately fly to any other...
No, he wouldn't. No, that wouldn't work. All right, hold on with this story. Ben gets a lot of wild stuff. I want to hear this in detail in just a couple minutes from Benjamin Fulford live in Tokyo, so stay right there. Okay, talking with Ben, as we do once a month, in Tokyo. All right, Ben, go right ahead. Tell me more about this.
My source is the head of MI6, okay? And he says that they haven't been able to confirm it 100% that George Bush Sr. was shot at Fort Hood. But we do know, from just the media reports that, first of all, the official story is full of holes and contradictions, and they flip-flop many times. First 3 killers and one, and the guy's dead, now he's alive, and then, just confusion.
common.
And we know there were a
for
bunch
these
of
kind of
limousines
events?
there at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And we know that George Bush Jr. immediately flew over there. And
how do we know
have
that?
to wait and see. If he's dead, eventually they'll have to
how do
finish
we?
the body.
Excuse me, Ben. How do we know that Junior flew there immediately? How do we know this?
Well, that's in normal corporate media reports. That like people at AP or something was saying this. So this is how we know that.
Okay.
Allegedly to console the victims, right? According to those reports.
Let me look this up. Go ahead.
And there is, like I said, there is a war going on, a financial war, and there is a huge faction in the intelligence community, in the Pentagon, working worldwide in cooperation with the Chinese and the Asians to flush these people out, to get them. So there are a lot of good guys at work, and it's behind the scenes. The Nazis control most, 96% of the English language media, so they keep putting out garbage and nonsense. And if you have any mathematical ability or brains, you can see that what they're saying is not making sense. It's a tissue of lies. Look at the Federal Reserve Board's books, for example, or look at the Baltic Drying Index. That's the cost of shipping. It's 1/10 of what it was a year ago.
Okay. All right, we know about the Baltic. Hold on, Ben.
The real unemployment rate of over 30%. Yeah. Everything's coming apart.
Okay, hold on a second. It is true that Bush Jr. and Laura flew to Fort Hood. The stories are also running around that Bush Sr. was there, and that the Fort Hood shootings were a cover story for the recovery of Chinese currency boxes by the Bush crime gang?
I don't believe about the currency boxes story.
There's so much crap out there. That's the problem. I mean,
the currency boxes just doesn't make sense. There's no way that, and you don't need these boxes.
It's not
I don't
even good
believe that
fiction.
part of it.
Stupid.
But again, that I don't get this from that Christopher Story character. I get it from a separate source.
All right.
Otherwise, I wouldn't be telling you this.
I know. Okay, there's a lot.
Anyway,
the problem
we'll
is,
see.
Ben, there's a lot out there on the internet now. It's so easy to put this kind of stuff out there and have people begin to chase their tails. It happens all the time.
Exactly. That's why you have to look for every bit of independent confirmation you can.
Now, when you get your information from your sources, you and I both know that you are certainly open to being used for disinformation purposes by people.
Sure, and if that happened, the thing is, you got to remember that I was a financial journalist for over 20 years. And for 20 years, people have been trying to get me to write stuff that would manipulate markets in their favor.
Mm-hmm.
So I do believe I have a very powerful immunity to disinformation. And I do check things carefully. Mm-hmm. But if I have put out disinformation, and I have in the past, I've always issued a correction.
Well, you and I have talked about this, and I have, when you've asked, pointed you in directions which have led to some further clarification, and certainly in your view that has led to some of these corrections. That's true. And you're always open-minded, and you're always willing to listen, and that's much to your credit.
And the other thing you got to remember is that as a reporter, or as a journalist, I report what people say. So say if Obama says he's going to invade Iran, I write that Obama says he's going to invade Iran. And if he doesn't invade Iran, it wasn't, what I wrote wasn't wrong. It's just that he said it, but he didn't do it. So if I have sources that I know to be KGB or Mossad or whatever, and they tell me stuff, sometimes I put it out to see what sort of reaction that we get.
Well, I understand that.
Misinformation.
Yeah.
But,
it can work.
It's a process, and it's an ongoing thing. We're working out a puzzle here, and sometimes your pieces are missing.
Well, people do that. They will put out disinformation knowingly to try to pull in some of the culprits behind it and get. I understand that, and there's much more to it, of course. Now,
I was in the Philippines recently, and I met with a senior member of the Rothschild family and a representative of the person who said they were a representative of the Chinese government reporting directly to Hu Jintao and Wen Jiabao.
Mm-hmm.
And they told me in advance what Obama would be doing and how he would get no money in China. And I confirmed, yes, came back empty-handed. The other thing they confirmed to me is that, yes, indeed, the Federal Reserve Board and the Bank of England sent gold-plated tungsten to China, saying it was gold. And the Chinese drilled holes in it, and they found out that it was tungsten. And now the Feds are saying, oh, my gosh, oh, geez, that was just stuff we kept for display purposes. We'll get you the real gold. Just wait a minute. And they're frantically trying to find gold, but nobody's going to sell them gold for their worthless dollars. And that is something I have confirmed from multiple direct sources. So there is a financial war going on, and it's also clear now that the people who are attacking the Fed also got a monopoly on the world's gold supply. So the crashing of your housing market and everything, that was part of an economic sabotage operation against the United States, that's for sure. And the goal was eventually to create the circumstances for a world government. This is for sure. But what's happened is that their plan is not working according to their plan. This much I can guarantee you is happening. And you'll be able to see it. What we're hearing now is that unless an agreement is reached to back the healthy dollars with gold, and then just eliminate all the derivatives dollars from, just erase them, all the stuff that was created fraudulently, then the dollar will go up. But if not, then it'll crash to 6 cents in January or February. And right now, the Feds are frantically calling every day asking for gold, and they're being told no. And the Chinese are telling the Feds that we will not buy any more treasuries unless they're backed by gold. And the Japanese are also no longer buying U.S. treasuries.
Well, cooler heads prevail.
There's serious economic warfare going on.
Oh, yeah. Yep. Okay, back with Ben in just a couple minutes as we go into our final segment tonight on this Friday night, this weekend of Thanksgiving, American style. Every day should be Thanksgiving Day if you look at it properly. Be right back.
Known worldwide as the most consistently fascinating, informative, and unique program on radio, the Jeff Rense program can be yours to listen to anytime, anywhere, whenever you want to hear it. For pennies a day, our subscribers can download any of Jeff's thousands of programs featuring a treasury of newsmakers, researchers, eyewitnesses, and incredible subjects, all in MP3, commercial-free, crystal-clear 56-bit digital sound, and take these often unforgettable programs with them wherever they go. As a subscriber, you can also listen live at airtime, online, anywhere in the world, or browse through our archives of over 6,000 hours of legendary broadcasts. Subscribe now by taking the link at the top of Rense.com and enrich your mind with the most unique panorama of vital information and the best independent, honest journalism in radio. Look for the Subscribe Now link on Rense.com and give yourself the knowledge you need.
Okay, back with Ben Fulford in Tokyo.
In the last section, I want to tell you about the Black Dragon Society.
Right.
In World War II, the Japanese and the Chinese were joined in a secret alliance known as the Black Dragon Society. Now, China was split, okay, into two factions, but they believed the Nazis were going to win World War II, and they knew that Hitler wrote in Mein Kampf that he wanted to enslave and kill the non-white races. So they were preparing for a big final showdown. Well, when Japan lost the war, the society went to sleep. It was founded by a guy called Mitsuru Toyama. His grandson, Toyama Okisuke, has now revived it. And what it means is all the Japanese right-wingers, the people who were going around with sound trucks, the Japanese gangsters, were terrorizing politicians and journalists and killing them for the CIA here in Japan, no longer work for the CIA. And they are now actively fighting the New World Order. Now, I want people to understand that Asian triads and Yakuza societies are not the same as crime gangs. What happens is you pay a membership fee, say $100 a month, and then you're offered protection.
Right.
And most of the people involved are just doing legitimate business, but they need they need to have their back covered in case they run into unsavory characters.
Got it.
And when there are, of course, criminals in these organizations too. And when there's an emergency, it's like the Chamber of Congress declaring an emergency, then the gangsters and the unsavory types will obey the Chamber of Congress to fight for the greater good. But these organizations cannot be used for personal profit. And the Black Dragon Society is like a Western version of this group now, because we have members from MI6 and KGB, CIA, Vatican Bank, people like that, very high-level people.
Okay.
And the purpose of the society is very simple. End poverty, stop environmental destruction, world peace, and develop the forbidden technology for the benefit of humanity. And there are no obligations except to do things that you agree upon together. And you'll be provided with protection. That's all. But this is the group, one of the main groups that's fighting the New World Order worldwide, and we got them. We've got them on the ropes. I promise you that. I know it doesn't look that way from inside the United States. Things get worse and worse and worse, but we have to drain the swamp before we can flush out the swamp creatures, and that's what we're doing. And it's going to hurt the Americans for a while because they're not bowing out gracefully. They're dragging it out as long as they can, as far as they can, and they're not going to go easily into the night. That's what they keep telling us. But they are going. We're going to get them. It's too late now for them, to carry out their plans. Everything is blowing up in their faces.
Well, I'm all for you, Ben.
So,
I know that.
The latest I'm hearing, and it's not over until it's over, but January and February is when a lot of stuff's going to happen. And right now there are all sorts of high-level meetings all over the world. As you know, the latest G20 ended up in total chaos and acrimony.
Right.
There's total disorder among the Western governments right now, and chaos. They don't know what's going on. They are confused. They are dazed. And you can see this just by looking at their official communiques or whatever they're saying, just contradicting each other and flying back and forth on mysterious trips, all this nonsense. So it's going to be very, very interesting times, and I do recommend to everybody to have at least a week's supply of food available in case of some sort of
don't stop
disruption.
there. More than that.
Yeah, more than that, and hopefully there will be no civil war in the U.S. Hopefully this will happen nicely and politely, but they do have a large, SS-like mercenary force known as Blackwater, and they do have a lot of loyal flunkies, and so it's not going to be over until it's over. But I believe that most of the colonels and majors in the Pentagon are very, very angry right now with the U.S. government, and they know that these people have destroyed the United States economy, and they don't trust their own generals because most of them are being bribed, because if they get that high up, the chances are they're compromised. But there is a serious move in the Pentagon against these people now, and in the various agencies. That's why information is leaking. That's why stuff is being hacked and put on the net.
Right.
And that is why lots of people are, the people who are dying, like I latest count, 105 senior bankers have been killed or suicided.
What?
That's mostly the bad guys trying to cover their tracks.
Where's this? I didn't see this.
There are little items here and there. You got the head of Washington Pereira suddenly found dead. You have this other guy found the bottom of his pool.
I've seen a few, but not the 105.
Well, there's a list on the net, and each one is appears as a small news item, maybe one paragraph or two paragraphs. But add them up, and you're seeing a lot of bankers dying right now.
Well, a lot of people would say not enough.
Oh, yeah, well, there's more than 1,000 have also been arrested. Again, you won't see that in the media, but say go to the FBI homepage and look at their news, and you see how many bankers are being arrested by the FBI, for example. And they won't report it in the newspapers, but it's happening. And it is on the FBI homepage. So I believe they're with the good guys now. But, it's mixed. There's the bad guys everywhere.
Sure.
And usually they're at the top.
Right.
But the rank and file is not bad. They're good people, and they know that something's wrong.
They're the cannon fodder.
From all directions now.
They're the ones who get shredded every time.
Yep. And the middle class, of course, in the U.S. has been totally devastated by these scum.
Not much left.
Americans were at their richest in 1973. That's when a guy working at a GM factory could live in a big middle-class house, have two cars, and his wife would stay home with the kids.
I talked to a guy today who has lost virtually, he was a real estate developer. Not full-time, but that's what he did as an avocation. He wasn't, a realtor. He was a developer. He lost all of it, and he's not happy, and you'd like talking to this guy. He knows exactly who's behind it. He knows exactly how it was done. And he said, Jeff, I want to tell you, I've had more than a few people I know have put a shotgun to their heads in the last several months, and they're gone. And that's locally in this area. Now, probably across the country, there are thousands.
Goldman Sachs, okay? They have record bonuses while everyone else is miserable.
Yeah, well, of course.
What they do is always they lend people more money than they can prudently spend. They create a bubble, and then they pull back all the money. And then people suddenly they can't pay their loans, and then they just take their stuff, take their property, take their factory, take their,
of course,
lives.
Yeah.
They are predators. They are not interested in developing the U.S. economy.
But these same people have been at this for what, a couple thousand years? I don't know.
Yeah.
The same mentality.
But you see, the thing is, again, this is from the perspective of many countries in the world. The West is like Babylon. You have a Babylonian god king at the top, and a brainwashed pyramid of people under complete control and enslavement. And they don't realize it. That's a horrific machine. That's how they look at it.
Sure.
And I think they're right now. Unfortunately, they destroyed Western civilization. They bought the science magazines and started distorting the process of science and hiding information from people. They took over the academic world and compartmentalized it. So you get all these specialized idiots who don't know what the hell's going on in the world because they're only studying a tiny little square of information. They took over the academic world and compartmentalized it. So you get all these specialized idiots who don't know what the hell's going on in the world because they're only studying a tiny little square of information. They deliberately dumb people down, and they hate generalists, people who have a broad perspective, because they're the people they can't fool. They're the people they can't just give misinformation. I mean, this climate thing is a good example. People trusted Nature magazine, and so they read it there, they say, okay, the world is getting hot. Oh, my gosh, it's an emergency. But if they're being told lies, but they don't know. They're operating on misinformation, so they may come up with the wrong conclusions. These people have destroyed Western civilization, and we're going to destroy them as a result and bring back Western civilization to what
a lot of people hope that your friends can turn loose those 10,000 gentlemen to do their thing. Or was it 100,000?
It's happening bit by bit. But, the thing is that we're doing it in a peaceful way because we don't want to give them an excuse to start a war.
They don't need an
So
excuse.
the Chinese have already set up a new financial system. You can trade every currency in the world, the South American, Middle Eastern, Japanese, with the renminbi. So the rest of the world's economy is now growing at a fast pace. It's only the U.S. and Western Europe. They're being kind of isolated right now from the rest of the world economy.
Right.
Until we can flush these scumbags out of the top of your system. And that's what's happening.
Well, fascinating. So, what's Christmas like in Japan?
Christmas in Japan, or Christmas Eve, is when guys take their girlfriends out for an expensive date and maybe give them a Tiffany jewelry or something. It's considered a time for lovers. They sell a lot of erotic Santa clothing. And Christmas Day, maybe the father will bring a little present for the kid, but it's not a holiday here.
I see.
But then there are lots and lots of Christmas decorations and Christmas music everywhere.
Erotic Santa clothing, right?
But in Japan, the real Christmas is New Year's. That's when the family gets together and they eat the special feast, and that's their equivalent.
All right. Well, we'll talk to you on December the 23rd. Maybe you can spend a little bit more time. That's very interesting.
Yeah, there should be a lot to report by then, too. Things are happening at a very fast pace.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Ben, as always.
Thank you.
Take care.
Yeah, bye.
Benjamin Fulford, live from Tokyo. Always interesting. Okay, back with you on Monday. Gee, the 28th. Only 3 more days. 4 more days. 3 more days? On the 30th Monday. It's the last day. Whew. In the meantime, we'll be with you at Rense.com, and of course, the archives are available for you members all the time. Enjoy. Have a great weekend.
Known worldwide as the most consistently fascinating, informative, and unique program on radio, the Jeff Rense program can be yours to listen to anytime, anywhere, whenever you want to hear it. For pennies a day, our subscribers can download any